And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday. We have a lot to talk about today on the show, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show and makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, the link is streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment. So, with that, let's get into what we are going to talk about today. So, actually, news came out this morning that Deshaun Watson will be undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. So we'll start off by talking about that to repair a broken bone in his throwing shoulder. So he's done for the year. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the power rankings that were released this week. And then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about Kyler Murray's performance on Sunday and how he did. Cardinals winning on a last-second field goal. A lot of late finishes from Week 10, and obviously this is another one as well. And then to conclude the show, we will go over the current standings around the league, and that'll be it. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about Deshaun Watson and his injury and how that impacts the Browns. So, yeah, he is going to be getting season-ending shoulder surgery, his throwing shoulder. There was a broken bone in his throwing shoulder. So, he's done for the year. And, of course, yesterday, I talked about the Ravens-Browns game. And, Deshaun Watson obviously hasn't been playing great this year, and he's missed time due to injury. And in the second half against the Ravens, he went 14 of 14. So, he had a great second half, against them to lead them to a win, to help lead them to a win. But ultimately, now he's out for the year now, and now it's going to be P.J. Walker, as the starter moving forward. And, sorry, still dealing with that cold. Anyways. So, it's going to be P.J. Walker moving forward. And, the Browns have won with him. They beat the 49ers with P.J. Walker at quarterback earlier this year. But this stinks for the Browns. Because they came off of that huge win against the Ravens. They're 6-3 right now. They're sitting pretty when it comes to the wild card, and we'll talk about that, at the end of the show when we go over the standings. But, this is a big loss, and this really hurts their chances of, getting to a Super Bowl. For me, I don't have the Browns. I didn't have the Browns going to the Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson. But I think in terms of, just making the playoffs, I think this team could still make it. They're going to have to rely more on their running game. Their defense is going to have to step it up even more. But I think, they could probably still get into the playoffs right now. Right now they're 6-3. They play the Steelers this weekend, which now the game gets a little bit tougher because now you don't have Watson. But you know what? The Steelers are a team that struggles offensively, and I talked about this, I believe, yesterday. So, that's still a winnable game for them. And then, you look at the remaining games on their schedule. So they're actually, this is the Steelers' schedule, sorry. Go back to the Browns. So they're home against the Steelers. Then they're at Denver, at the Rams, home against Jacksonville, home against the Bears, at Houston, home against the Jets, and then at the Bengals. So, I definitely see 3 wins in there. I think they probably get to maybe 9 wins, 9-10 wins. I think they could still do that even with P.J. Walker at quarterback. Because the other thing, too, is the defense forces turnovers. It could put them in good field position. at times. So, um, I think this team could still make the playoffs. I mean, they're still sitting in a good spot, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough blow for them. It really is, and it's a disappointing end to Deshaun Watson's season because again, he wasn't playing his best football, and you were hoping at some point that well, they were hoping at some point that it was going to happen, and now that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's going to miss the rest of the year. And, the Browns, I mean, injuries have really hurt this team this year. I mean, look at Nick Chubb, him getting hurt, second game of the year against the Steelers. Now, Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt have done a nice job filling in for him. So it's not like the Browns' running game has suffered. I mean, obviously, you want Nick Chubb there because, that would make them even better. But Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt have done a nice job filling in. And again, like, that's going to be, who has to step up as well. The running game's going to have to step up. They're going to have to rely on them more. And the Browns still have good weapons, for P.J. Walker to throw to. Of course, Amari Cooper's had a nice year regardless of who's been at quarterback. You still have Njoku, Elijah Moore. He caught that touchdown on Sunday. So, the Browns are hoping to get him going. So, it's not like this team is dead. I don't think so. I think this team can still make the playoffs. But, now that you don't have Deshaun Watson, that kind of lessens your chances of going further in the playoffs in the AFC. But the AFC playoff picture is just, I mean, there's so many teams that are in it right now. And, right now, the AFC North has a monopoly on playoff spots. They obviously they have their division, but they got, two of the three wild card spots. The Bengals at one point had it. But, they just lost to the Texans now. So, I mean, that division's tough. But, yeah, it just not good. Not good news for the Browns. Not good news for the Browns. And like I said, playing the Steelers this week. I mean, they could still win that game. They could definitely still win that game. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game. But at least they're at home. So Deshaun Watson, so we'll actually look. So his stats, to finish off the year. Again, like he missed all that time. Well, some time with injury. I mean, yeah. So he finished with 1,115 passing yards, 7 touchdowns to 4 picks. So P.J. Walker will step in, and he has 618 passing yards on the season, 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions, and his QB rating is a 51.3. So yeah, the Browns are going to have to rely on the running game a lot more. I mean, of course, now, we'll see if, Dorian Thompson-Robinson maybe gets thrown in there at some point. I don't think so, but he will now be the backup to P.J. Walker. The Browns definitely got some criticism, though, for not trading for a quarterback, because I think they were interested in getting Josh Dobbs, and they actually had Josh Dobbs, but then they traded him. Actually, I think they traded him. They were the team that traded him to the Cardinals, I think, right? Am I not mistaken? Let's look at that. Let's look that up really quickly, because I know Josh Dobbs played for the Titans last year. He played in a few games. So Browns traded breakout QB Josh Dobbs before Deshaun Watson injury-plagued season. Yeah. So, like, if they would have just kept him around, well, again, who knows? I mean, he'd probably be better with the Browns. I mean, the Cardinals, he was good, but, the Browns have another team that has a better supporting cast than the Cardinals at the moment. We'll get into the Cardinals in a couple of segments. But, yeah, I mean, they traded Josh Dobbs. I remember watching a, football YouTubers that I usually watch, and they were talking about, like, all the, like, backups that the Browns, like, traded. So, like, they got rid of, like, they got rid of Josh Dobbs. I'm trying to remember. Well, they let go of Baker Mayfield. They got rid of him. They let him go and let him go to Carolina, or they traded him to Carolina. Um, who else? I'm trying to think who else that they had. Well, now they have PJ Walker, obviously. Some of the names escape my mind, but they had like a bunch of Jacoby Brissett, who played most of last year. Yeah, I mean, and no offense to PJ Walker, but you see how Josh Dobbs is playing, and Jacoby Brissett played well for the Browns last year. He was decent. Like maybe you should have kept those guys, but they elected not to. So, we'll see what happens. I still think they could definitely get to 9 wins. I don't think that's impossible. I think that gets you in maybe, because I mean all these teams are going to be beating up on each other here for the wild cards in the AFC. I mean you got teams at 4-5 and 5-4. Like they're going to be beating up on each other, down the stretch. So it might end up taking you 9 wins to get in, and I think the Browns could definitely do that because you have the defense and you have the running game as well. So. I think they could still get in, but let me know what you guys think. Did the Browns still make the playoffs, even with this injury, or, are they doomed? Which I don't think they are. I don't think they are. But like I said, I think if any Super Bowl aspirations, I think those kind of are, those kind of faded. But it's funny because, I mean, I really didn't have this team going to the Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson and how he was playing this year. So, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to count the Browns out. I still think this team is very good. But yeah, it's a huge loss. And again, like he had that monster second half. He went 14-14. And the Browns had a dramatic come from behind win against the Ravens, and you thought, hey, carry this over to the rest of the way, and Deshaun Watson keeps playing like that, they could beat anybody. But now that's not the case. Now that is not the case, unfortunately. But like I said, they got a winnable game coming up against Pittsburgh, and then they go from there. So. But yeah, Deshaun Watson's season is over, and the other thing too is, I mean, this trade that they made to get him and to give him all that money, not really worth it. Not really seeming like it's been working in the Browns' favor. It's in fact giving them more headaches, honestly. But. What are you going to do? So, yeah, once again, Deshaun Watson's season is over. And with that, we're going to take our first break of the show. Then when we come back, we're going to discuss the power rankings that were released this week. We'll talk about that, where the Browns are after their big win against the Ravens. And, obviously it's going to change a little bit because now with the Deshaun Watson injury, they might go down a little bit, but I don't think so. These were released like before, the news of him being out for the year, so I don't think it's going to change. But we'll see. I haven't looked at him yet, but that is what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.